Heartwarming. Drunk millionaire found in trash transforms life of poor picker in unexpected way. Every sunrise brought the same routine for James, a 35-year-old single dad, and his 7-year-old daughter Lily. Their small apartment, with peeling wallpaper and creaky floors, hid echoes of laughter and love amidst the struggle to get by. Each morning before dawn, James laced up his worn, brown work boots, a symbol of the tireless fight to make ends meet. With Lily still wrapped in her little blanket, he stepped out into the chilly air, ready to scavenge for recyclables, a task that put food on their table. One fateful morning, while rummaging through a pile of discarded items behind a diner, he noticed a figure slumped against a dumpster. It was Charles, a disheveled man clutching a bottle, the remnants of a life that once gleamed with promise. Many might have walked by with disgust, but James didn't. He approached with a kind smile, offering Charles a bottle of water. The man's tired, red-rimmed eyes flickered with a hint of humanity, igniting something in James, a spark of compassion. "How'd you end up here?" James asked softly. Through muted words and weathered confession, Charles unraveled a story that was heart-wrenching yet familiar. A wealthy businessman, a cascade of bad decisions, and betrayal that pushed him off the edge. The tales of prosperity turned to loss mirrored the cracks in James' life and built an unlikely friendship formed amidst the filth of society's abandonment. As days turned to weeks, Charles helped James in sorting through garbage, sharing scraps of wisdom along with tales of a bygone era. Their bond contrasted sharply with townsfolk gossip, who whispered behind hands about the miracle of their friendship. Some found grace in their union, while others clung stubbornly to prejudice. With each discussion, the community wrestled with deep-rooted biases, forced to confront the fabric of their judgments. But not all was well. Just when hope began to bloom like spring flowers, disaster struck. Charles faced an overwhelming crisis, pulling the delicate strings of trust between him, James, and Lily. When whispers of Charles's past surfaced, it sent shockwaves through their makeshift family. James found himself on a tightrope, torn between protecting his daughter and staying loyal to a friend who needed saving. The town divided rapidly. The emotional weight felt heavier. Would they rally for redemption, or would they cast judgment in the name of self-preservation? James' heart raced, knowing that the innocence of his daughter was at stake as he watched from the sidelines. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Amid the chaos, the looming confrontation was inevitable. As Charles stood before the townsfolk, ready to face the consequences, his shoulders hunched under the weight of their disdain. Those who once sneered now awaited judgment, with anxiety thick in the air. Would they find a shred of forgiveness? Or would the shadows of his past consume everything that had blossomed? With Lily clinging to James' side, wide-eyed and unaware, the question lingered. Could transformation rise from the ashes of failure, or would this friendship be engulfed by uncertainty? The square was packed, an almost palpable tension hanging thick in the air. Charles stood small in comparison to the crowd assembled before him. They've brought him here to reminisce about past failures, as if the stench of his mistakes had lingered long enough to mark him forever. The murmurs bounced off brick walls of the diner and echoed into the alleys, igniting whispers of his past while drowning out any fresh chances for redemption. James could feel Lily's grip tighten on his hand. She looked up at him, eyes wide with confusion and worry, trying to grasp the gravity of the moment. "Daddy, is Mr. Charles in trouble?" The innocence of her voice felt like ice piercing through the warmth of his heart. "He just needs to explain himself, sweetheart." James stroked her hair, racking his brain for words that could ease her fears. The truth was that James didn't know what would happen next. He wanted to shield her, to protect her from the hurt that came from being part of a community determined to pass judgment. The town's mayor stepped forward, adjusted his glasses, and took a solemn breath. Residents of Maplewood, thank you for gathering today. We stand here to address the elephant in the room, the recklessness of one of our own. His voice wavered, though a facade of authority encased the fear behind it. Charles, you have brought unrest among our people. We need to know. Can you truly change? Charles, pale and trembling, didn't he falter when the weight of their eyes bore into him? I can't change the past, he started, voice shaking but firm, but I'm working every day to create a better future. He paused, glancing at James and Lily, who stood resolutely a few feet away. I'm no longer the man I was. My mistakes have changed me. A woman in the back scoffed. You may say that, but you've shown us nothing but shame. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the air like a knife. The murmurs intensified, creating a chorus of doubt that echoed around Charles. James felt anger bubble up within him. How could they not see? He opened his mouth to shout back, to defend his friend, but he was stopped by Lily pulling harder on his sleeve. Daddy, I want to go home, she whispered, welling with tears. Just a bit longer, honey, he murmured back, kneeling to meet her eye level. Let us see what he says. As Charles continued to speak, he transformed. Something shifted within him. His determination ignited. There was a time I truly believed I was untouchable. He confessed, voice now carrying the weight of vulnerability. But life has a way of knocking you down. He looked at James and Lily, inspiring a sense of hope in the darkness. With their help, I'm trying to pick myself back up, to be better. The crowd was silent, reflection etched on disparate faces. Would they dare to see beyond the man sitting before them? To acknowledge that people can change? A few voices began to join in, speaking up for Charles, recalling moments of kindness he had shown them as a personalized plea against the judgment. He took care of my dog when I was away, said an older gentleman, breaking out from the throng. Yes, not just a failure. The tide was beginning to shift, but James still felt the heavy air around them. Could they truly embrace this story of redemption? As the murmurs of uncertainty faded into a flicker of hope, James found himself taking a step closer, wanting to protect this newfound possibility. But in the crowd, one lone voice cried out, he doesn't deserve a second chance. The words echoed, igniting a fresh wave of dissent. Would anger and fear overthrow kindness? With all his heart, James knew he had to make a choice. Could he trust the community to support the man they once shunned? Or was it safer to shield his daughter from the potential hurt? In that moment, the question rang true: what is the cost of compassion in a world that so often thrives on judgment? And what was the right choice for Lily's future? The murmurs surged again, a tide of anger and confusion clashing against the fragile hope that had begun to unfurl. James could feel the weight of his decision pressing down on him, a palpable rush of uncertainty flooding his mind. He glanced around at the crowd, faces marked with frowns of disapproval, others softening with a flicker of understanding. It was a battle of sentiments, a push and pull he couldn't quite comprehend. Lily squeezed his hand again, her tiny fingers interlacing with his as she leaned closer, her breath warm against his ear. Daddy, I'm scared, she murmured, her voice almost lost amidst the roar of voices. With a protective instinct coursing through him, James knelt down to her eye level. It's okay, sweetheart. Sometimes people are just afraid of change. People can be kind, too. Let us see what happens. But the moment Charles was met with more criticisms, the optimistic atmosphere began to dissipate. You think words can erase years of pain? Another voice rang out, piercing through the tension. James felt his heart race. This was the kind of fear that could lead to darkness. Would the crowd really shut down Charles's journey before it even began? Suddenly, the mayor raised his hand, urging for silence. He appeared like a captain on a ship caught in a storm, fighting against the deafening waves. Everyone, please, we owe it to each other, to this community. His voice cracked with emotion, revealing traces of vulnerability. We can't allow our fears to govern us. If we do, we all remain trapped. James watched as Charles straightened, driven by the mayor's words. The resolve that ignited in him reminded James of the countless struggles he'd witnessed in life. Failure didn't have to be the end. It could be an opportunity for growth. Look, Charles said, I've lived through the wreckage of my mistakes. I fell down hard. But trust me when I say, it hurt me more than you'll ever know. As the crowd grew quiet once again, James saw a flicker of change in their expressions. Slowly, people were beginning to shift their weight as if torn between the chains of past grievances and the flickerings of hope. Arms folded, jaws tightened, yet eyes softened. In that electric moment, a man stood up from near the back. Old, gray-haired, his eyes glimmered with years of wisdom. I felt that hurt too, he started, voice shaky yet steady. A hush enveloped the square. Charles, it took me a long time to forgive myself, but I did. And I found love again. James felt a warmth spreading in the air, a fragile but hopeful energy that collided against the bitter wind of resentment. The man continued, sometimes at isn't about deserving a second chance, but recognizing the strength it takes to ask for one. As the old man spoke, murmurs of agreement rippled. Other voices joined in memories of kindness, small gestures, moments that hadn't been erased. People were remembering how Charles had touched their lives, the seeds of compassion fighting to break through the hardened ground of judgment. James felt Lily's grip loosen as she turned to face the crowd. The tears in her eyes had faded, replaced by curiosity. Look, Daddy, they're starting to see, she whispered, her voice laced with wonder. But just as a glimmer of hope sparked to life, the voice that had shouted earlier rose again, firmer this time. You can't just wipe the slate clean. What if he fails again? James's heart sank. Each person in the crowd now faced a choice: would they hold on to fear or step into the unknown embrace of redemption? How would this moment affect not just Charles but each of them? With his breath catching in his throat, he realized the true test wasn't only for Charles, but for every single one of them. In the distance, the sky darkened, foreshadowing an approaching storm. As thunder rumbled overhead, James knew the decision they were about to make would echo in their lives forever. Could they truly nurture change, or would the darkness win out? And as they stood on the precipice, a genuine question hung in the air. When faced with the storm, how many would choose the light instead? The crowd was tense, each heartbeat seeming to echo the rising storm clouds above. James could feel the anxious electricity in the air. He looked at Charles, standing there exposed, the weight of a community's expectation on his shoulders. It was a make-or-break moment, and everyone was waiting for the next move. Lily tugged at his jacket, pulling him back from his thoughts. Daddy, they're talking again, she whispered, her voice infused with a mixture of anxiety and wonder. James was reminded that beneath the harshness of their words, there still lived a human desire for connection and understanding. He glanced back at the crowd, where the murmurs had shifted once more. The man who had previously spoken, the gray-haired figure, was joined by another, a woman this time, with kind eyes and weathered hands. Change is messy, isn't it? She began, her voice gentle yet strong. I've seen my own mistakes haunt me, seen the hurt I caused. But I also learned we heal when we let others in. In that moment, James felt a wave of relief wash over him. The crowd was beginning to transform, bonding through shared pain and empathy. Conversation sparked, a symphony of voices discussing their experiences, stories of hardship mixed with hope. Maybe we aren't so different after all, a younger man yelled from the back, the words a challenge, a bridge reaching out to the hesitant crowd. He deserves a chance. We all need one. As those affirmations swarmed around them, James noticed others beginning to nod. Their arms unfolded, and they leaned in, ready to listen. It felt like the weather was responding. 2 raindrops began to fall softly, gently washing away red flags of anger and fear. Charles, the mayor, called out, breaking into the charged air. Would you be willing to let us into your journey? We want to understand, to support you. Charles, visibly shaken yet empowered, took a deep breath. I would be honored. I promised to reach out, to share the real me. A single clap broke through the crowd, followed by hesitant applause that slowly built into a swell of approval. James felt a rush of warmth. Within the storm, there was a beacon of light flickering brighter. The community, once wary, began to reflect the bravery of vulnerability and acceptance. But just as the atmosphere turned more hopeful, the earlier dissenting voice shot through again. Talk is cheap. Actions have to follow. What guarantee do we have? The challenge weighed heavy, drenching the moment again in uncertainty. James' heart dropped, ready to plunge the crowd back into doubt. His eyes quickly darted to Lily, who, despite being small, looked resolute. The ferocity in her gaze inspired him. She stepped forward, her tiny voice ringing out, cutting through the dark mood. But what if he can? What if we can help him try? Her words hung in the air, mesmerizing and raw. It was a child's innocent plea for faith, a reminder that their journey did not have to be one of isolation but could be a collective effort. The crowd began to murmur again, not in argument, but in contemplation. As the rain began to fall more steadily, a few brave souls started to move closer, feet shuffling as they drew toward Charles. A promise lingered in the atmosphere, but it required everyone to leave fear behind and grasp possible change in their hands. James felt a surge of pride for his daughter, realizing that perhaps this moment of vulnerability, combined with community support, could foster something profound. Would they embrace the light amidst the shadows? The soft patter of rain echoed the heartbeat of a group ready to rewrite their story. But the question remained. Could they transform that promise into reality? Or would the storm wash it all away? Only time would tell. As the heavy raindrops began to fall in earnest, the crowd's murmurs shifted. Some people stepped back, unsure of how to react as the atmosphere hung thick with anticipation. Others leaned in closer, drawn by the heartbeat of hope that radiated from the front. James felt a knot in his stomach but pushed it aside. He had witnessed communities fracture, splintering under pressure, yet here was something different, something stirring. He glanced at Charles, who stood with shoulders slightly hunched but with determination glistening in his eyes. The man was at the edge of something that could reshape their lives. "Let us show him we believe," a woman suddenly shouted, her voice piercing through the rain's rhythm. The crowd turned, surprised by the unexpected outburst. "What has he done that we haven't? We all have things we regret." There it was, a ripple, an awakening. Pieces of the crowd began murmuring again, identifying with shared vulnerabilities, with that yearning for connection. Charles, his breathing steadying, managed a small nod in response to her challenge. Then James felt a small hand in his, the warmth of Lily's grip anchoring him. "Daddy, can we help him?" she asked, eyes wide with determination. He looked down, her face aglow even in the dim light, and nodded slowly. "Yes, we can." The wet ground seemed to spark under the sudden surge of thought. Someone else stepped forward, a man who had lost his job, a father who bore scars of despair but had braved the storm of recovery. "Let me talk," he called, his voice steady. "I want to share how I turned things around. We can help each other, can't we, Charles?" The tension began to ease, laughter breaking through like sunlight racing after the clouds. People began to share their tales, of losing and finding, of darkness pressed against the brightness of dawn. One after another, they stepped into the shared light of their common journey, their words weaving a fabric filled with honesty and understanding. Charles listened intently, absorbing the community's stories as if they were a lifeline. A flicker of gratitude danced on his lips, and for the first time, hope began to anchor in his chest. Beneath the rain, a bond was forming, thicker than blood, stronger than fear. "It's going to take time, but we can do this," he called out, finding his voice among the rumbles of encouragement. "Together, we can lift each other." A crack of thunder interrupted him, loud and sudden. The crowd gasped, eyes darting nervously to the skies. James's heart raced as he instinctively bent to shield Lily. But as the tension climbed again, something unexpected happened. A child near the front jumped in excitement, laughing out loud. "It's just rain. Let it fall. It feels good." And just like that, laughter erupted. The heaviness of the moment was washed away in a shared joy, the kind that could only build from embracing vulnerability. The crowd collectively exhaled, moving against the storm instead of cowering under it. They began to dance in the rain, arms flung wide open, conversation turning back into the familiar hum of community support. James found himself laughing too, the sound mixing with Lily's innocent glee. The rain was no longer a burden, but a celebration. But as he looked around, the echoes of laughter was fractured by one haunting question tossed like a pebble into still waters. But will we really keep this going? Will we have the courage when it counts? James turned to where Charles stood, eyes focused on the crowd, so nearly lost amidst the joyous uproar. It was a pivotal moment. Would they all walk the walk, or simply dance in the rain? As the storm raged on, it felt like everything hung in the balance. Could this spark ignite into something lasting, a true transformation, or would the winds of doubt sweep it all away? As the rain continued to pour, the laughter of the crowd bounced back off the wet pavement, creating a symphony of hope against the loud patter. James felt the warmth of Lily's small hand in his, her laughter a steady metronome in the chaotic rhythm of the storm. They were alive, they were all alive, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the weight of doubt seemed to lift, if only slightly. Yet, beneath that buoyant surface, doubts lingered. Charles stood, a pillar amid the swirling mass of people, grappling with something deeper. He glanced at James, catching his eye, and in that brief moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them. The radiant joy of the crowd was mesmerizing, but like any storm before a calm, uncertainty loomed just on the horizon. Now what? James thought, as he watched Charles raise a hand to quiet the exuberance around him. It was a bold move. The laughter faded, yet curiosity sparked. What could Charles say to keep this moment alive? "Thank you," he began, his voice cutting through the residue of joy. "Thank you all for showing up tonight. You didn't just come to listen. You came to be heard." The crowd shifted, eyes on him. Hearts thrummed with an urgency to connect. "I know it's easy to let the rain scare us," Charles continued, wiping the water from his forehead. "It's easy to retreat into our homes and forget. But what if we didn't? What if this rain is not just a storm but a chance for us together to wash away our fears and doubts?" A murmur of agreement rippled through the audience. James watched as people nodded, reflecting shared sentiments. There was no denying it. There was something powerful brewing before them. "Let's create a space, not just tonight, but every day, to nurture this courage," Charles proposed, determination weaving every word. "We can form a community group, a place where we can share resources, support one another, and truly rise together." Cheers erupted in response, an explosion of enthusiasm that reminded James of fireworks illuminating the night sky. People were yearning for just this, a thread to bind them together. "Does anyone want to contribute ideas?" Charles asked, stepping further into the crowd. "Let us think of how we can help each other." One by one, hands were raised, voices rallied, eager to contribute not only their thoughts, but their passions, hopes, and dreams. They spoke of skill sharing, family support initiatives, and even simple meetups to uplift one another. In a world full of distractions, they found strength in the simplicity of togetherness. James couldn't help but smile, pride swelling in his chest. This was more than a group. They were redefining what it meant to stand shoulder to shoulder. They were refusing to be swept away by the downpour. As the night deepened, the rain began to lessen, a soft drizzle now kissing the pavement. The crowd began to disperse, invigorated and hopeful, yet reluctant to leave the newfound connection. "I believe we can make this last," Charles whispered to James as they walked away, Lily in tow. "It starts with trusting one another." "I hope you're right," James replied quietly, his heart a blend of excitement and trepidation. Suddenly, Lily tugged at his hand, her wide eyes sparkling. "Daddy, can we really help them?" "I want to help." Charles chuckled softly as he knelt to her level. "Absolutely. Every small step starts with someone like you." As they continued their walk home, the sounds of laughter and plans mingled in their minds, weaving through the remnants of the rain-soaked evening. But one question echoed persistently within James. How would they navigate the trials that lay ahead? Just as they reached the edge of the street, where the darkness seemed to seep into their casual conversation, a crack of lightning lit the sky, illuminating something shimmering in the distance. Look, Lily pointed with a gasp. James and Charles turned to see what seemed like a silhouette emerging from the shadows, standing alone against the gloom. Who is that? Charles murmured, the moments before truth hanging heavy around them. And then they realized they had to find out. The figure in the distance began to take shape, and as the clouds parted momentarily, James squinted. Panic flared within him, mixing with a rush of curiosity. Was this person a source of trouble or something else entirely? Lily, gripped by a mixture of fear and excitement, squeezed James's hand tighter. Are they okay? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Charles stepped forward, confidence displayed in his posture. Let us see, he said, moving cautiously toward the silhouette. The rain had lessened to a sprinkle, glistening on the pavement like tiny diamonds, and yet the air felt heavy with anticipation. As they got closer, they saw that it was a man, hunched over and disheveled, the remnants of his clothing tattered and muddy. His hair was matted, and his eyes were dull, as if he hadn't slept in days. Yet, there was something piercing about his gaze, an unyielding fire that refused to be extinguished. Hey, Charles called gently, trying to keep his tone soothing. Are you all right? The man looked up, startled. He blinked a few times, as if processing their presence. Just resting, he replied, his voice raspy, barely above a whisper. Just waiting for dawn. James felt sadness wash over him. The man before them bore the weight of the world, yet there was a strength within his vulnerability. You shouldn't be out here alone, James stated, trying to strike a balance between concern and understanding. Let us help you. The man's brow furrowed, uncertain. Help? Silence and solitude are all I have known. Help is a strange word. Something about that struck James as a painful truth. Everyone in that vibrant crowd earlier had come together to find connection and support, yet here was a man who had lost touch with that concept. What's your name? Lily asked, her little voice breaking the tension. There was innocence in her question, starkly contrasting with the gravity of the situation. Oliver, the man replied slowly, a flicker of spark igniting behind his eyes. Hi, Oliver. I'm Lily, she chirped, beaming as if her smile could lighten even the heaviest gloom. Do you want to come with us? We can have hot chocolate. It's warm and sweet, just like hugs. Oliver blinked, clearly taken aback by this bright child who seemed wholly unaffected by his appearance. For a brief moment, the corners of his mouth lifted, but then the weight returned, pulling his features into a somber mask. We can offer you more than hot chocolate, Charles interjected, sensing the slight glimmer of hope. Together, we're trying to build a community. We can help you get back on your feet. At that, Oliver let out a low chuckle, but it wasn't out of joy. A community? Sounds nice, but I don't belong there. I've lost my way. James stepped closer, feeling the urgency of the moment. It's never too late. We can help you find it again. The man considered these words, and for a heartbeat, James felt a connection, as if they were both holding up the same weight. In that space between silence and the sound of the rain, vulnerability began to shatter the barriers wrapped around Oliver. Lily leaned forward, captivated by him. You can teach us things. You must know a lot, right? Maybe you could help me learn about everything. The corners of Oliver's mouth twitched once more, a hesitant smile threatening to break through. But just as quickly, the shadows returned to his eyes. What's the use? He muttered, each word heavy with desperation. Before James could respond, the thunder rumbled ominously in the distance, reminding them of the storm that had only recently begun to fade. That rolling sound was like a warning bell, suggesting that the night was not yet finished with its surprises. Don't give up on yourself, Oliver, James urged, heart racing. Let us show you what this community can do. You don't have to face this alone. But as if the universe were answering a question he hadn't yet voiced, another flash of lightning illuminated the surroundings, revealing various faces peering from the darkness. eyes filled with curiosity. And then James felt something stirring within him. Conviction. Before he could stop himself, he called out toward the figures. "Join us. We're ready to help. Let us embrace this chance together." As the murmurs of the unseen people shifted, James' heart thumped wildly. What would they say? Would they rally to help Oliver? Just then, Oliver looked up. His expression softened in the glow of possibility. Maybe I'll try," but before he could finish, a crashing sound erupted nearby, forcing everyone's attention back into the night. "What was that?" Charles exclaimed, eyes wide. And as the shadows danced once more, a new mystery unveiled itself on the horizon. Would they uncover a way to transform a life? Or would the night impose deeper challenges? The sound echoed like a thunderclap, jolting the group out of the fragile moment they had created. James turned sharply, instincts honed. The rain had settled into a soft drizzle, but now there was a chill in the air, a sudden rush of uncertainty. "Stay close," he whispered urgently to Lily, who instinctively squeezed his hand tighter. Charles kept his eyes peeled on the shadows, scanning for movement. It felt like a scene from a movie, one where danger lurked just out of sight. "Let us check it out," Charles said, stepping forward, a mix of bravado and concern on his face. Oliver, still crouched and hesitant, watched them with a mix of fear and newfound hope. "I'll just wait here," he stuttered, his voice barely a whisper. "No, Oliver. You shouldn't be alone," Lily insisted, trying to pull him into their small protective circle. But the man shook his head, retreating further into himself. Suddenly, the dark silhouette of a figure stumbled forward from the shadows. A woman, drenched and disoriented, staggered toward them. Her clothes hung heavily on her, waterlogged and torn, and her eyes darted, wild with confusion. "Help!" she cried, her voice cracked with desperation. "Please, I need—" "Easy now," James urged, moving closer but keeping a safe distance. "What happened? Are you okay?" The woman's gaze flickered to Oliver, recognition flashing across her face. "Oliver, is that you?" He froze. "Samantha?" he whispered, disbelief dancing in his tired eyes. At that moment, horror eclipsed the glimmer of hope that had been threatening to bloom. The connection between them was clear. They shared a painful history, one steeped in struggles they had both tried to escape. The woman stumbled forward, tears streaming down her cheeks. I thought I lost you. I've been searching everywhere." Heartache wrapped around James as he stood there, grappling with the intensity of their reunion. It was clear that Oliver had once meant something to her, but the shadows of the past had swallowed them whole, leaving only remnants in the darkness. James caught Lily's eye. She was confused yet curious, grappling with a concept far beyond her years. "Do they know each other?" she murmured. "Looks like it," he replied softly, keeping his voice steady. Oliver swayed slightly as Samantha approached, their eyes a collage of intertwined pain and longing. "Why are you out here?" he asked, voice trembling. "I had to get away from everything," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I thought I could find you, but it was so hard. I didn't know where to go." At that moment, the realization hit James like a freight train. Maybe this was a chance for both Oliver and Samantha to rediscover hope together. But he felt the weight of their shared despair settle like a heavy cloud, threatening to pull them back into the depths. Together, James interjected gently, "You might find a way up from this. You're not alone anymore." Lily beamed, her innocence shining bright amidst the overwhelming emotional tempest. "You can both come with us. We can help," she encouraged, her voice sweet and sincere. Samantha looked down, her eyes filled with unshed tears. "Do you really think so?" she asked, vulnerability carved into her unexpected strength. "Absolutely," James replied, determination surging within him. "You can start fresh. We'll figure this out, but you have to choose to try." Oliver's gaze shifted back toward Samantha, a flicker of rekindled hope shining through. "What if we can't? What if we fall again?" "Then we'll just get back up," Charles said firmly. "It's what we all need to learn. Nobody has to do this alone." As the thunder grumbled softly in the backdrop, A moment hung in the air, a moment that held the weight of their choices. Would they embrace this chance for change? Or would the shadows of their past continue to haunt them? Then, as if affirming his words, lightning forked violently overhead, illuminating their group and the vibrant world around them. "What will you do?" James asked, staring intently at them both, caught between hope and fear of the unknown. In that suspenseful pause, time seemed to stand still, leaving everyone teetering at the edge of a cliff. Would they transform this chaos into a lifeline, or would the night swallow them whole? But before they could answer, another crash echoed through the air, shaking the ground beneath them. "What now?" Lily squeaked, her voice trembling. James felt his heart race. What had the night yet to reveal? What other secrets lurked in the shadows, ready to emerge? The tension was thick in the air, the storm blending with the heavy emotions swirling around the group. All eyes turned toward the shadows, where the mysterious sound had originated. A part of James was seized with dread. It felt as if more was at stake now than just their own survival. "Stay alert," he cautioned, positioning himself defensively in front of Lily, who clutched his hand, her small fingers trembling. Was it fear or excitement? He couldn't tell. Samantha and Oliver stood frozen, the recognition between them palpable, but the storm outside stirred unease within. "What if there's someone else out there?" Lily whispered, her voice almost drowned out by the escalating thunder. Another crash rattled through the night, this one closer. Charles clenched his fists, gathering strength. "I'll go." "No, Charles," James interrupted, taking a step forward. "Let us stick together. We need a plan." His heart raced. The thunder was getting louder, and the dark figure of Samantha swayed slightly, clearly overwhelmed. "I didn't mean to stumble into this," she murmured, voice cracking as she turned to Oliver. "But I didn't know where else to go. I was lost without you." In that moment it was like a switch flipped. Oliver's eyes softened. The pain and worry that had hardened his features began to melt away. "You're here now, Samantha. That's what matters." Just then the ground shuddered again. James looked back toward the shadows where uncertainty still thrived. "We have to either face it or find shelter," he said, urgency edging his voice. But what if facing whatever lurked out there meant exposing every raw nerve? What if the revelation brought more darkness instead of fading fears? The thought made James' stomach churn, and he could feel the unease radiating through his small group. What if it's more than just sounds? Lily's voice quivered, breaking through the tension. "What if it's something worse?" "Enough," Charles said, cocking his head to listen. "We can't stay here forever." As they debated, James felt an unexpected warmth from Lily's hand, her unwavering belief in their survival bringing him back to focus. He glanced at Oliver, then Samantha, and slowly realized that this moment was a crossroads for all of them. Hope and despair danced, neither willing to claim full dominion. James stepped forward, eyes bright with sudden resolve. "Let us not run scared. We face whatever's out there. Together." Samantha's breath caught as she met Oliver's gaze. They were fragile but intertwined, and for the first time, he looked ready to confront what lay ahead. Doggedly, they made their way toward the encroaching shadows. The looming uncertainty was not just a threat, it was a potential catalyst for their healing. What if facing this chaos propelled them toward transformation? On three, James said, steadying everyone's nerves. 1, 2, 3. They stepped into the edge of darkness beyond their little circle. Just as they moved forward, a shadow erupted from the trees, revealing a man. He was unkempt, his clothes torn like Samantha's, his eyes wild with a kind of fear that matched their own. "What do you want?" James called out, reflexively stepping back. But before anyone could respond, the man yelled, "Help me! They're coming!" In an instant, everything shifted again. With adrenaline pulsing through their veins, would they recognize the gravity plunging into this unexpected turn? As the lightning flashed overhead, illuminating the stranger's face, a collective gasp swept through the group. There, hiding behind the chaos, lay the girl's worst fears, echoes of the past readying to resurface. What had they gotten themselves into? Would they unlock more secrets or find a chance to redefine their fates? The moment hung, dense with apprehension, like the air before a summer storm. The stranger's eyes darted nervously, wild with the urgency of his warnings. And for a heartbeat, James felt the world around them spiral tight in fear. "What do you mean?" he asked, voice steady yet strained. "Who's coming?" "Gang members," the man panted, panting as if the words weighed a ton. "I escaped. They'll come for me. Please, you have to help." James felt Lily's grip tighten around his hand, the little fingers trembling against the chaos unraveling in front of them. "Stay close, sweetheart," he murmured, kneeling to be at her level, knowing she could hear the tremor in his own voice. He turned to Charles, who was already assessing the situation, eyes narrowed. "Do you think he is telling the truth?" Charles whispered, glancing at the trembling man. With every passing second, it felt like shadows were creeping closer, stretching from the darkness of the trees. Before James could reply, a low noise, harrowing and fierce, rumbled across the space, a sound that sent chills cascading over him. "We have to make a decision," Samantha interjected, edging closer to Oliver. "If this is real, we can't just stand here." James knew she was right. The looming threat was like an unspoken warning. "What's your name?" he asked the newcomer, his voice steady. "Ted," the man replied, glancing back nervously into the shadows. "I swear I'm not a threat. I want to get away. Please." A rush of sympathy bridged the distance. Ted's desperation mirrored their own vulnerabilities. But could he be trusted? "Let South go to my place," Charles suggested, glancing at the direction they'd come from. "It's not far and we'll be able to help him there. But we need to move now." As James glanced into the shifting darkness, instinct screamed at him to take Lily and run, to protect her at all costs. But another part of him, a part ignited by the community that had sparked from nothing, yearned to help. "Okay, let us go," he said, his voice thick with resolve, though his heart raced. With quickened steps, they ushered Ted towards safety, forming a protective circle around him as they dashed through the rain-soaked streets of Maplewood. Each footfall became a silent vow. They would not abandon anyone again. Together, they turned down an alley toward Charles' home, adrenaline kicking in as London skies began to break. Rounding the corner, they paused at the entrance, a gaudy, dilapidated building that held its own history of hardship. "In here," Charles urged, pushing open the door. Inside, they huddled closely, each heart drumming in unison. A chorus of anxiety filled the air as they collectively processed the frenetic energy that had just unfolded. "Now what?" James asked, breathing heavily, glancing at Ted. "Are we safe?" "Maybe," Ted murmured, his voice hoarse. "But you need to understand, I brought the storm with me." "What do you mean?" Oliver interjected, gripping the back of a chair for support. "It was my fault. I thought I could take a chance, make some extra money," Ted admitted, voice trembling. "I didn't know who to trust. Now they want me back." Tension thickened, and James felt Lily shiver beside him. The fear in the air became a tight knot, wrapping around them. "How do we keep her safe?" he murmured to himself, though every other ear caught the weight of his question. Just then, a crash, angry fists pounding against the door. "Ted, open up." The voice was gravelly, unmistakable, filled with authority yet driven by menace. Panic swept through the group like a gust of wind. "They found us," Ted cried, eyes wide with fear. "No, we can't let them in," Charles shouted, face pale. "We need to protect all of us." James could feel his composure falter. The last thing he wanted was for Lily to witness violence. But the urgency tore through him. "Gather in the back," he instructed, heart pounding. "Stay low. Don't make a sound." Lily's hand slipped away as she obeyed, moving quietly behind him, joining the others in a corner. James quickly shoved some furniture against the door, the noise echoing compassion through his spine. Would it hold? As the pounding grew louder, Ted whimpered in the shadows, hiding behind his new allies. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "I didn't mean for this to happen." "None of us did," James promised, feeling a rush of protectiveness wash over him. They were a bond forged through shared vulnerability, no longer alone. What if we let them in? Lily suddenly suggested, eyes wide as she stepped forward. Maybe they want to help him, too? No, Lily, James breathed, fear creeping in. We can't give them that chance. We must stay strong. But in that moment, a flash of hope surged through James like an ember igniting a flame. Wait a minute, he thought, turning to Ted. Do you have someone? Someone who can help? Ted looked uncertain, battling with the storms of the past that still loomed. I could call for someone, but then another thunderclap echoed, shaking the walls, igniting a wave of bravery in James. Then do it. We can't let fear prevail here. We support one another. Oliver, a glimmer of determination in his eyes, stepped closer. This is bigger than me and Samantha. We don't have to fight alone. As the pounding continued, voices shouted demanding access. Open up. We know you're in there. The commotion filled the air, a cruel reminder that the darkness never slept. With courage swelling inside him, James pulled out his phone. If we stand together, we'll figure it out. He shared determined glances with each face around him. Charles, Lily, Oliver, and Ted. They needed to unite. Make that call. Call your friend. And as Ted hesitated, something shifted within him. All right, he breathed, resolve building in his voice. Let us do it. The man dialed a number, his fingers quaking with uncertainty. With each ring, James felt their hearts tighten collectively in unison. Would this decision turn the tides? Would they break through the darkness? Thunder rumbled overhead, answering them both, and at the same time, a sense of radical hope blossomed through clenched fists. Moments later, just as uncertainty grew heavy, Ted's friend answered, and Ted's trembling words echoed through that empty room. An armor forged in understanding. Help is on its way. And as shadows threatened to envelop them, they realized they were fighting for more than themselves. Each held a piece of a puzzle, each voice merging into a symphony of healing, ready to embrace transformation. Not just for tonight, but for the days ahead. As Lily sighed in relief, James held on to her, feeling the shared heartbeat of hope. We'll face the storm together, he whispered, knowing that this was the moment for redemption. Would they rise unified into the dawn? Only time could tell, woven in the fabric of their choices. Feeling the strength expanding in the air, James knew one thing for sure: together, they could weather it all. Victory was made from hearts willing to heal. And with that, the momentum shifted, turning towards an uncharted yet promising horizon. The future awaited. They stood poised to embrace it, ready to shine through the shadows and dance in the rain. Now, as you wrap up this incredible journey, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support for heartfelt transformations. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let the world know these stories matter. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Your voices resonate. And don't wait not even one more second to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.